Hi everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Rugby Geek channel. Missing Fantasy Rugby? Yeah, so am I. Today we're doing slightly different from the usual domestic Prem and URC games because the Champions Cup is almost here and the game itself is exclusively live on Super Brew and the game is now up and ready for you to start tinkering with your teams. If you've used Super Brew before, you'll know the format, but the Champions Cup version comes with its own twists and traps and a few fancy edges that can definitely be exploited. So in this video, I'll talk you through how the game works, what's changed this year, and the key strategies to get ahead from round one. Stick to the end of this video to get all the tips you need to get off to a successful start the season. Right, let's get into it. All right, let's start with the basics. So Super Brew's Champions Cup fantasy game is your classic salary cap squad builder style game. Very similar on the surface to the other formats like Prem, URC, but with its own quirks. You get a €100 million budget to build a 23-man squad, and you have a set number of players to select per position group. So that means 4 outside backs, 3 centres, 2 fly halves, 2 scrum halves, 4 loose forwards, 3 locks, 3 props and 2 hookers. And from that squad you pick a starting 15, and importantly it's only your starters who score fantasy points. The bench doesn't score any points at all unless somebody in your starting 15 doesn't play, if they get injured in the warm-up or if they're a late hook. So picking good cover on the bench is a key part of the game. You're also limited to 3 players per team, which forces you to spread the talent out, especially when we start talking about loading up against some of the weaker sides. Like last season, you also get a double scoring captain, a designated kicker, and 6 free transfers per round during the pool stage. Anything extra beyond those 6 costs you an extra 6 points per transfer, so be careful not to over-tinker. Scoring's pretty similar to previous seasons, but there's one big new feature that if you play Prem or URC, you'll know all about: dynamic player pricing. This is the biggest change to the game this year, and to be honest, having experienced it with Prem and URC, I love it. Player prices now go up and down based on performance and transfer volume. So if a cheap youngster starts hitting form, he'll rise quickly, and if a big name gets benched or goes down injured, he'll fall. What that means for us is that early values really matter, bargains matter, and jumping on emerging players early can really rocket your overall team value. We'll talk about specific bargain players later on in this video, but this price rise mechanic is a real opportunity to build a stronger squad for later in the tournament, which is key if the bigger sides and the bigger name players make it into the final stages of the tournament like we expect. Okay, so before we get into the game strategy and some tips for success, here's the lightning fast recap. So a squad size of 23 players, a team size of 15 players. There is a captain, he scores double. There's a designated kicker, so if you have 2 players in your team kicking, that doesn't help. You need to select 1 player to get your kicking points, and it can't be your captain. You get 6 free transfers per round, maximum of 3 players per club, and the bench does not score you any points unless some of your auto subs come on. Pretty simple on paper, but the edges come from understanding how to use these levers. So let's talk about some tips for success. Right, so this is where we get ahead of the rest of the pack. First tip, load up against the outsiders. The Champions Cup is an absolutely brutal tournament with very few soft matchups, but there are some clear outsiders this year. Teams like Claremont, Gloucester, Bayonne, Castres, Edinburgh, Scarlets, Section Paloise, aka Po, they're all priced by the bookies 151 or worse to win the whole thing. So your goal each round, look to these teams, and if they're playing away, then load up your 3-player maximum against whoever they're facing. That's where your captain picks should come from too. You want high scoring opportunities, and this is where they are. Okay, next up, take care of your bench. This is a big one, and it catches players out every year. The game will lock on Friday night when the first match of the round kicks off, and after that, you can't make any changes. So your bench is the safety net. If one of your starters doesn't play, but you have a bench player from the same positional group who is starting, Super Brew will auto sub them in. So that means always fill your bench with nailed on starters. Don't carry risky picks, and don't assume you'll be able to fix it after the team sheets come out. Point number 3, don't miss the deadline. So likewise with the subs, you have this tiny window. Saturday and Sunday squads will drop at midday on Friday, and then with the Friday night kickoff happening shortly after, you've got to use that window to make your changes. always double check that your 23 are actually playing, ideally starting. If you follow my Champions Cup list on X, and there's a link in this video description, you'll catch all those team announcements as soon as they land on a Friday afternoon. Next up is an absolute classic, but this is one of the most reliable edges across all of fantasy rugby. If you can find an outside back who's classified as a centre or a loose forward who's classified as a lock, you're getting elite scoring potential at a positional discount. These players are rare, but when you find them, they're absolute gold. Next up, ball carrying backs are the biggest points machines. In this scoring system, you get half a point for every 5 meters carried. So load up on players who carry the ball in from deep, who beat defenders and carry a ton. Fullbacks and wingers are your best friends. And this is why we emphasize good matchups so heavily. Backs absolutely feast when they're playing weaker sides. Next, catch the price rises and find the bargains. The new dynamic pricing opens up loads of value. And there are some value picks in there already. Some great early season options include Tommy O'Brien, David Niniashvili, Sebastian de Klerk, Celesi Rayasi, Cirelli Makala, Lucio Cinti, Bika Gorgadze, Peter Gusso-Akula, Guillaume Cramon, and there are so many more. These are the players who could spike in value really early, especially if they're nailed on for starts due to injuries or rotation. So get on them before the price rises hit. Next up, transfers are valuable, so plan ahead. You only get 6 per round, so look ahead at the fixture schedule to avoid bringing in someone with a bad run of games, to maximise your free player stack against weak sides, and avoid wasting transfers on 1 week punts. This tournament is short, but it's punishing if you don't plan. So that's the full overview of the Super Brew Champions Cup fantasy game. It's a brilliant format, and with dynamic pricing and 23-man squads, there's loads of opportunities to outplay the pack if you think strategically. If you want more fantasy tips, content throughout the tournament, tips, team reveals, transfers, my weekly updates, make sure you're subscribed and check out fantasyrugbygeek.com for the usual weekly tips. And if you want to chat through your team selection with me and get access to my exact teams each week, then check out the Fantasy Rugby Geek membership site on Buy Me a Coffee for exclusive access. Thanks for watching, best of luck building your teams for round 1, and I'll see you in the next one.